1302.
Yes, sir.
So it's nice.
Okay, so they may kick us out here in a second. You're going to have to start everything over and do it all over again, okay?
Okay.
Some of the smaller ones.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our June 15th meeting. Before we start the meeting, we do have a representative from the Ministerial Alliance, which would like to introduce.
Live, ready to go? Well, let's pray.
Yeah, we're going.
We just thank you for the opportunity to be in your presence.
Do you go listen for bad sound? If anybody brought a laptop or cell phone and they're zooming from up there, I probably should see if that goes.
Everyone that's involved in the work of our city, Lord, would you just bless them now? Father, we just ask that your spirit of peace would just pervade this meeting, Lord, that everything we talk about, everything we discuss, Lord, everyone will just approach it from an attitude of peace, Lord, that we are going to realize that peaceful resolution is how we get things done. So, Lord, let's just approach it from that angle, but be with each of them, bless them tonight, Lord. Let them have a one meeting, Lord. We just thank you and praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Like to open the meeting. Pledge. John, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no old business to go over tonight. We have one item on the consent agenda, and that is a motion accepting the June 2nd certified election results. John?
Thank you, Mayor. There's not a lot to report. This comes from County Clerk Pam Grow, and it is the election results from our June 2nd election. And with a motion, we can presume with the other activity we have planned. Need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and second. Roll call vote, please.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Jordan, Eberly,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
10 ayes.
Thank you. Before proceeding with the elected official swearing in, we'd like to recognize two of our own that will be leaving. Monty Jordan has served in Ward 1 numerous times with concurrent terms and sometimes with a break. He's been on many committees over the years, from planning and zoning until God knows how many, just an awful lot. He represented Ward 1 doing all of the big projects that we've done over the last
Ellen's here, I guess.
And Monty has been a colleague of mine for all of that time, and a well-respected one at that. When Monty made a decision, he knew it was well thought out. So on behalf of the citizens of Rolla, I would thank Monty for his many years of service. And I don't think he's here. Jacob Rudder. Diggs had a much shorter tenure, but has done a lot of very good things for Ward 3. And as a city as a whole, because a lot of times people, we think that we're elected by wards and we only make decisions for that ward, but that's really not the case. And Jacob has always taken the big picture into decisions that he's made. Jacob's always been well prepared and always asked very relevant questions. Might not ask a lot of questions, but when we asked the question, it was a damn good one and a damn tough one. So thank you very much for your service, Jacob. And I've already spoke to him, since now that he's got an awareness of how the city runs, we'll be tapping him for some sort of board or commission very shortly. And thank you. Okay, now we've a chance to welcome into the new class. Carol, we're going to do the swearing in.
Okay.
So for those of you that are elected, Judge Crump first. Judge, follow me. Right next to Carol.
Please raise your right hand. I, James T. Crump,
James T. Crump,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
and I will faithfully demean myself
in the office of municipal judge,
in the office of municipal judge,
for which I was elected
for which I was elected
on the second day of June 2020.
on the second day of June 2020.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could, please. Thank you, appreciate it.
Can we have Terry, Ann, Lister, Jody, Carolyn, and Deanne?
Am I missing out there? It doesn't matter to me. Go to you, okay, in the position you're in, okay. I, and state your name.
Bruce.
You solemnly swear.
Well, we did. Somebody
that I will
did.
support the Constitution of the
Yeah, they
United
are.
States.
And I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution
Yeah,
of
they
the
are.
State of Missouri.
No, they were there. I checked.
And that I will faithfully.
When I sent the Zoom invitation.
Faithfully demean myself.
In the office of ward.
In the office of ward.
Council representative.
Council representative.
For which I was elected.
For which I was elected.
On the second day of June 2020.
2020.
Thank you. We'll find you there.
Yeah, we gotta sign it when I'm official.
Yeah, sign and need your signature right there.
Me?
Yeah,
Yep.
you.
Oh, me.
Yeah, you first.
Right here?
Yes, right there.
You have a mask and glasses, you can't see yourself.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
Sorry
they
about
fogged
that.
up.
And one more right there, please.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a friend.
Thank you, kind sir.
Thank you.
Go ahead and sign there.
There's something yellow in the back.
Yeah. Right there.
Yellow things can take forever.
Yeah. There you go, right there. Gotta do advance.
Little handshake.
Here. Thanks, Terry. You can sign right there.
Another hand in it? Yeah, I'm a left-hander, so.
Congratulations. Welcome to 2 more years.
Sign there.
I really want
Yeah, let's. Yeah, it takes 2 years to figure
Congrats, man.
Especially him. Another little one. Good to see you. I found problematic. Now it's, I mean, now we're very.
Yes, the tour I've been to so much. But like,
Usually I'm there and we try to find
other stuff, like the This is your seat. This is your official.
Returning council persons,
And your
thank you for continuing your career representing the citizens. And for the newcomers, you worked very hard to get where you are today. And you want to be congratulated for that. Welcome aboard. You'll find that the average citizen being a council person is probably a whole lot more work than you anticipated or than they believe. And the decisions are, I wish they were 90-10, but they're 49-51. But you'll find it, I think, very rewarding, and I think you'll be very proud to represent citizens in office. Nothing greater than being able to do that, so welcome. Okay, the party's over. Now you have to start working. We got two difficult ones here.
Or maybe just.
There are no public hearings schedules, and we do not have any acknowledgement of special presentations, but we have 3 items under new business. The first is to review a proposed budget for the Forum Plaza Community Improvement District. And I believe, John, before we actually conduct the review, I think he's going to give a little history as to what a SID is.
Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations on your reappointments and elections. So thrilled to have you. So the Community Improvement District, that is a sales tax overlay that was imposed on the Forum Plaza Shopping Center. It actually started in about 2014, 2015, when the Price Chopper family and part of the American Wholesale Grocers Association acquired that property, approached the city about a blighted conditions, and as a result of a process of ordinances and public hearings, council designated that as a community improvement district. 1% sales tax is assessed on all the purchases there, and that goes back as a reimbursement to the developer. The developer, if you remember that project, which really the work was done in about 2016 or so, will have spent about $13.5 million, and the reimbursements under the CID 1% sales tax is up to a $4 million reimbursement. So one of the requirements in the CID is that we annually present the budget to the council. Council doesn't approve this. The Community Improvement District is a full purposed political subdivision of the state of Missouri, but the courtesy is that that gets presented to the city council for any questions. So I'll talk a little bit about how that really looks and how it plays out in the course of time. And you'll notice on your packets on page 6, A2, A3, and A4 is that submittal, and it's a very simple budget. It consists of about a half dozen lines of the 1 cent sales tax coming in. There are some expenses that come out of that, and then the balance gets sent over to the developer for reimbursement. The real key element, I think, is on page 6A4, and it shows the revenues that have been received through the CID, and it shows what dollars went back to the developer for their reimbursable expenses. So I mentioned they are eligible to receive up to $4 million through the year 2039. So there's a 20-year term on the actual sales tax itself. They fronted the money, and they're getting paid back at 2.5% interest. Unfortunately, while the project is successful, they're happy with what the sales are, it's not meeting their revenue projections in order to retire that CID bond in its entirety, at least after 2.5 years. So we have paid out reimbursement to the developer, $526,000, but the reduction in principal is $241,000 of that. The rest of it is the interest payments that have been going on over the last 2 or 3 years. What that really means is their $4 million balance is $3,860,000 as of May of 2020. It's highly unlikely that over the next 17, 18 years, they'll be fully repaid back on their portion of the investment that would have otherwise been eligible for reimbursement. That's okay. That doesn't come out of the taxpayers' pockets. That doesn't come out of the community as a whole. City council has no obligation to meet that payment. After the 20 years, that 1 cent CID surcharge sales tax simply goes away, and the project is considered complete at that time. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the budget or about the Forum Plaza Community Improvement District. And if not, again, we don't need approval or action from the city council, but if you have any other questions, you'd like some clarification, we'd be happy to provide some information this week if you have some questions.
Thanks, John. Next item is a motion authorizing the 5-year extension of a land lease composting site. Ready?
Good evening, everybody. If you've ever taken your landscape waste, leaves, grass, brush, etc., up to our compost site at the north end of McCutcheon Drive, you'll be familiar with the area I'm talking about. Or if you've ever come up there to get any of the free mulch that we give away, you're really enjoying a cooperative arrangement there between the city and the landfill board. And you're also enjoying a much closer compost facility than we'd had before in the previous 10 years when it used to be located out at the transfer station out on County Road 2170. So it was quite a bit further distance for the public to transport their yard waste, and it also at the same time was a lot farther for our collection vehicles to run back and forth. But several years ago when the city acquired that property at the north end of McCutcheon, there was extra acreage there, and through a cooperative arrangement, the landfill board has been leasing approximately 5 acres there for the purpose of landscape debris disposal and management. For those of you who are not familiar with that arrangement or the landfill board, the landfill board is a public entity that is charged with management of the old landfills in Phelps County, and they also own the current operating transfer station. The landfill board provides the funding for the composting site operation, but it's operated by my department. So it's really a symbiotic relationship there. It provides an invaluable service to our department and the citizens of Rolla. The current land lease that has been going on for 10 years is set to expire at the end of this month. On behalf of the landfill board and my department, I'm here to request that we exercise the first of 2 available extensions that are an option built into the existing land lease, and I would like for us to go ahead and execute that. Be happy to answer any questions. And I think we're just asking for a motion tonight to grant approval of exercising that 5-year extension.
So motion. Second.
I'm gonna let you.
Someone said.
I'm working on a topic further down the list here, but, okay, was there a second?
Yes.
Roll call vote, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
For some of the new council persons, we don't always take a roll call vote. We've started to do this as we've gone to using Zoom. Sometimes it's a little harder to hear and see those operating remotely. Next item on the agenda is a motion to close certain streets and parking lots on July 10th and 11th during Rolla's 2020 Route 66 Summerfest. Oh, Steve, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we have a request to close some public lots and park and streets in conjunction with this year's Summerfest. It's virtually identical to all other Summerfest activities that we've done in the past. With one exception, we are going to allow some spots in both the South Festival and North Festival lots to be blocked off so vendors can set up and be ready to go by 4 o'clock in the afternoon of Friday. So I think there are some members of the Summerfest committee that are in the audience, and they're going to give you a little more detail as to what the event's going to entail.
Any questions for Steve?
Oh.
Well, normally Steve does this, so.
He did present it, so it was just a chance to go on.
Yeah, okay, does anybody have any questions?
Hey, Nick, are the activities about what they've been in the past, has anything really changed?
Well, the inflatable games, we're not going to have any of those. But we've got a big giant pool with paddle boats, kind of in lieu of that, and a climbing wall. So a little different from that in the same way. Pretty much everything else is the same.
And I think Steve said it, but the streets that we're asking to close are basically the same as they were last year.
I guess that was
Is that true? The streets that we are closing, is that
yeah,
the
it's the
same as?
same as last year. Yeah.
Have you submitted or are you planning on submitting a health plan for the event?
Yeah, we submitted that last week.
Okay.
And it's been reviewed, modified 2 or 3 times to get to the first state decision. Yeah.
Okay. And that's worked out for your group and putting on Summerfest?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Glad to hear that.
a couple ladies that spent a lot of time putting that together. We may have the first one in existence. Typically go out there and copy somebody else's and modify it a little bit. But somebody else will copy it. So we have to print it.
If I can.
Yeah, right.
But we did want to point that out. I think I shared it with you today, sent the email around, but there is a health and safety plan that's been submitted. We've gone through a couple of iterations of that. We included some of the CDC guidelines as well as the map layout on there. All told, there's probably 6-7 pages of the key details on the Summerfest from a health safety standpoint, maybe 10-12 pages total. So we'll certainly make this available for the public to share. But it worked out very well. I thought they did a great job, and the first submittal was probably 90% of everything we would have thought of, and it was just a matter of tweaking it from that point. So we'll be happy to share this as well.
I have a quick question. I know a couple years back there was an issue with the hot dog contest and someone getting sick and having difficulty. Is that happening any longer? Or?
No, that was the person last year.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of an unfortunate thing. But unfortunately, he was.
Yes, thank you.
It's been a couple days in the hospital.
Wow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nick, thank you. And others? Civic events like this take a whole lot of work, a whole lot of work, and a lot of salary, right? Yes. So, is there a motion from the council authorizing the closing of these streets on July 8th?
So moved. Second.
Motion made. Second. Roll call vote, please.
Allen?
Yes.
Lyons?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Bolin?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Reuter?
Yes.
Muse?
Yes.
Florence?
Yes.
Everly?
Yes.
Crow?
Yes.
Schott?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
12 A's.
Motion is approved. There are no claims or and/or fiscal transactions tonight. Under section Mayor City Council comments, we have 3 on the agenda. The first 2 are actions that the body needs to take. The first one is and both of those are actions that you take yourselves without input from us. The first one is a council appointment of the Mayor Pro Tem. That present position is held by Matthew Crow. So we typically do this with nominations from the group. If there's more than one nomination, then we will go to a closed ballot.
Nominee Matt Crowell.
Second that nomination.
Motion made and second. Are there other nominations?
What's the second?
Nominate John.
Me? Oh, I decline.
Smart man.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on. Okay, so you withdraw the motion?
Yes.
Okay. You're not giving them enough snacks.
I'd like to comment that I thought that Councilman Crowell did a wonderful job as pro tem, but in the thought of spreading around the duties, I'd like to nominate Councilwoman Eberly, if she'd be willing.
I think I'm gonna have to decline.
I'm sorry?
I think I'm going to decline also.
Okay. Any other nominations?
Maybe I need to rethink this.
If there's no more nominations, then I'll just call for a roll call vote.
Is this for, I didn't quite understand what Jody said.
Decline.
She declined, okay. All right.
Is that what that is?
Roll call vote on Crowell.
No.
On motion on Matthew Crowell.
Okay. Crowell,
Abstained.
Schott,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes.
Boland,
Yes.
Muse,
Yes.
Florence,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
11 ayes, 1 abstention.
Congratulations, Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Next is an appointment, a council appointment for the Planning and Zoning Commission representative. The past year it's been Jody. A lot happens at Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustment. There's a lot of requests and reviews before it even comes to you. That's a particular commission that certainly affects people's lives and businesses, so it's a real important one. So is there a nomination for council's appointment to the Planning and Zoning Commission? David?
I would nominate Councilwoman Eberly again if she's interested.
I will accept.
Okay, there's a nomination. Any other nominations? Okay, roll call vote.
Eberly,
Abstain.
Allen,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Boland,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Muse,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Florence,
Yes.
11 ayes and 1 abstention.
Next item on the agenda is a COVID update, which we've been doing for nearly all of the meetings here in the last couple of months. Everyone sees the news lately. The COVID is resurging in some areas and making new ground in other areas. Studies and recommendations seem to come out and change daily, so it's no wonder people don't know what to believe with respect to this particular virus. Locally, we've had our 6th case. Unfortunately, there are no known admissions to the hospital for COVID at this point. So we've been very, very fortunate here in Rolla and Phelps County. In seeking citizen feedback over the last weeks and months, there are some people that have concerns and have taken precautions, either making lifestyle adjustments or protecting themselves in various ways. Some do not. Some seem to want some common sense restrictions, others do not. On the other side of the fence, we have people that believe very strongly in individual rights and personal responsibilities. And we certainly know that our business community has been suffering severely here locally. So, there doesn't appear to be a real strong consensus one way or another. There's a lot of opinions and a lot of close calls, but at the end of the day, at City Hall, we haven't had a very, very strong consensus on which direction we should take shortly. The governor has taken some action here recently. On Thursday, June 11th, he implemented phase 2 of his recovery plan, and that goes into effect tomorrow. He's essentially lifted all restrictions throughout the state, but defers to local cities and municipalities to enact restrictions that they see fit and they see appropriate. And the governor has always made it clear that what's good in St. Louis and Kansas City may not be good in Rolla, may not be good in Grave Mills or somewhere else. He has kept the intent and the guidelines within his press release, and I'll just read that here. It's only a small paragraph. While Missouri will fully reopen on June 16th, Governor Parson emphasized the importance of continuing social distancing and practicing proper hygiene to prevent the spread of COVID. We must remember that COVID is not gone, Governor Parson said. It is still extremely important for everyone to continue social distancing. Be proactive, avoid large, congested crowds, and if you can't social distance, take extra precautions to protect yourself and those around you. We all know how to do this, and it's up to us to take personal responsibility for our own actions. So, that goes into effect tomorrow. The present ordinance that we have is valid until July 7th, which is a couple of weeks down the road. So, the question is, what does council want to do from this point forward, at least between now and July 7th, and then after July 7th, regarding the local statistics, the local preferences that people have. I'll defer to John, but I don't think you can take action tonight. So before, ultimately, what we want to do is, if council is contemplating changes of whatever sort, we really need to discuss those. We need to know what they are, and I think you need to discuss them at least conceptually tonight. I say that so that we could take maybe 10 different ideas and bring them down to 5 or 2, so we in City Hall know how to proceed. And also, these kind of discussions also facilitate thought and comments from the citizens, which is ultimately what's really important. So before I open it up for all of you to discuss that, John, can you go through the administrative steps for changes, modifications, repeals, et cetera?
The governor has one big advantage over us, and the governor is acting as the executive, and he issues these executive orders because the legislative body gave the governor that authority. In our case, if you remember going back 2.5 months ago, City Council did do an ordinance, declared an emergency, and gave some specific authorities to the mayor, but there were issues about opening City Hall, closing down parks. It was the administrative kind of controls. So the council has been taking their actions. Initial ordinance was the stay-at-home order. Then in the month of May, we opened up and did the begin to return to work. In June, we did a further extension of that. But those were done by ordinances all in one night. So we did a first and final of a document that was posted 24 hours in advance. That's really where we're at today. So the council has adopted, duly enacted an ordinance that is scheduled to expire on July 7th. So the only way for council to amend an ordinance is by another ordinance. So I think the mayor's summary of the options of repeal, amendment, extension, all valid. They can be done in special meetings, but it's going to require that kind of an action to be taken. So Carolyn certainly could advise further as to the frequency of council meeting or when best we could schedule something like that to also desire. But we just, because our authority comes through the legislative body rather than the executive body, it requires that more due diligence in the process.
Thank you, John. So how does council want to proceed?
So Mayor, the actions that we could take tonight would be to recommend amending the ordinance or repealing the ordinance, but we can't actually do that tonight. Is that what you're telling us?
I think the idea, if you wanted to make change, if you want to repeal it, then that's simple and straightforward, unless you want to put something in its place. If you want modifications, then I think what we're asking for is discuss it, hash it out. You don't have to pick up a specific set of words, but give us some sense of direction as to where you want to go, so that we can do our homework and then come back with formal options for you to take. Carolyn, disagree with that?
No, I don't.
Okay, John?
Well, I'd made the suggestion, you all probably saw my email, that we consider repealing it tonight and setting some and the mayor's mentioned this before, right now, we're kicking the can down the road with hypotheticals, but we don't have any measurables. So if we had a measurable, once we reach this point, this happens, or once we reach this point, this happens. And I think Nick Barrick, in his letter today, kind of touched on that. You know, if we get, and this, I'm not saying this would be what we would do, this is an example. If we get 10 cases in Phelps County and 3 or 5 admittances at the hospital, then that generates an action. That way we aren't, that way it can happen automatically, and we're not waiting for the next council meeting, or we don't have to schedule an emergency council meeting. That way we know when we hit this point, this is what's going to happen. That's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah, Mayor.
Well, I'm trying to read body language too.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Should see court with a mask on. I think what I'm hearing though is you're talking about an actual action because that's got to be, so that can't happen tonight.
So
you can't make those measurables tonight because it would be part of a new ordinance or something else. So you can't take an action like that.
And our staff can put together some ideas for the next council meeting, and we can vote on those then.
So either way, ideas, fewer rather than more, some discussion, whether you can reach a consensus tonight or not, but maybe close, so that we can do that. And then as far as the meeting, that meeting could be in the interim, right? So it doesn't have to wait till July 7th.
Right.
You could choose to wait till July 7th.
I see.
Or it can go earlier.
So yeah, what I'm saying, Carolyn, is we would have nothing until we came back with measurables.
Right.
And if we scheduled a meeting in a week, or these are ideas, I don't have a plan, I'm just throwing that out there.
What I understood from Mr. Butts and the mayor was more that tonight the hope was, let's talk about maybe framework of what those measurables are.
Sure.
And of course there would be further discussion, but to actually act on them or enact them, we would have to have a special meeting or wait till the next regular meeting. There are 5 Mondays, I think, in June. So, I mean, there are some options. If anyone has concerns about waiting till the next meeting and having this gap in between, there's also that to be said.
Yep.
Because that's what it would be, is just nothing.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
I hope they'll come back here. David.
I just had a quick comment to John's, which is that no matter when the date is for this ordinance, I do think that it's smart to be talking about what happens when something does come here in a harder way, because there's a real good chance for that in all places across the United States. And I think the more we're ahead of the curve, like John says, whether that's measurables or the fact that we've discussed, like, hey, what if we have a resurgence of this? Obviously, we've been pretty lucky up to now, hopefully in part to the precautions we've all been taking. But I do think that it's smart to have a plan in place for if something does start rolling along again.
Yeah, I was doing a little research, and I noticed that the president extended the National Guard activation on June the 2nd. And on June the 11th, our governor extended the state of emergency in the state of Missouri and also directed the Missouri Operations Plan to remain activated. And then he also called into, he's ordered that active service can be called in if deemed necessary from the state organized militia, just, for the protection of life and property due to, those were all things that were just done this month by executive orders and such from the governor and the president. But in the same, as you mentioned, the same press conference, he, stressed strongly that we should still remember it's here, the virus is here. We need to social distance, we need to wear a mask, protect ourselves and protect others. In Rolla, I've noticed a lot of people who do not wear a mask, and like masks or don't like masks, wear them or whatever your belief is. Rolla has lessened, we have lessened the restrictions. We've increased the number of people that can attend with a group at a table in a restaurant to attend. We have reduced the space in restaurants. You know, we're slightly lightening up some of the restrictions that were placed earlier in this process. Businesses are encouraged, and they're not mandated, they're encouraged to set appointments. We are not mandated to wear masks. We are encouraged in the city. So I believe that we should stay the course that we're on at this point. And I advocate for a slower, safer progression forward because we don't know how this virus is going to spread. Is it transmission, or is it going to be we're going to be getting more cases because there's more testing? They're doing testing every day at my community health care center. They're doing testing across the street from the hospital. And there will be more people that will be diagnosed. But with all the people coming back into play in the next month or so, we're going to have a lot of transmission potential, and I really worry about that.
The virus will come. It's not a question. Will it come?
Yeah, it's here. Yeah, it will be here. But is it going to be? Are the numbers going to increase and be reflective of increased testing, or have we done a very good job at reducing transmission? You know, if there has been any of that because of our measures we've taken, but I would just, for the sake of safety and less problems in the near future, I would say we stay the course at this point. It's just another 3 weeks,
We've done a lot of things in order to protect the people of Rolla, protect people from COVID-19, without really knowing if our actions will have the consequences we desire. Obviously, we've had great success in Rolla of avoiding the spread of COVID-19, and I think that's a good thing. But the cost has been that our businesses continue to suffer, and that there are people that aren't going to social distance. They're not going to do the things we suggest anyway. So it seems like there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of hardship that's been placed on people, and we can't really identify that what we've done has had any real impact. I agree. I think COVID-19 is going to come in probably greater numbers, probably in the fall and things like that. And I think John's suggestion of repealing the ordinance that we have and giving the mayor the authority through certain benchmarks to move us in a direction that will protect the citizens of this city should that need arise, similar to what the governor's authority is with the legislature. But to continue with the ordinances that we have that restrict businesses, that restrict a lot of aspects of life in Rolla, I don't think is necessary at this point in time with the level of COVID-19 that we've seen in our area. So I would suggest, my opinion is, that we repeal the ordinance, establish a new ordinance that gives the mayor the authority, if certain benchmarks are met, as John suggested, to then implement more strict requirements on the people and businesses in Rolla based upon the evidence as it is at the time, without the need to keep coming back to council with more emergency measures down the road. If, for example, when the university comes back in session, if there's an uptick at that point in time, it might make sense at that time to put tougher restrictions on the city. But maybe that'll never happen. So again, if we give the mayor that authority, he can address it as needed. So that would be my suggestion. And I don't understand why we can't repeal the ordinance tonight if that were the council's decision. And then come back at a special session in a few days or next Monday and implement an ordinance that would give the mayor the authority I'm suggesting.
Could they do it first and second reading? So if you were going to enact an ordinance, you could do it the same day, right? Waive the rules and enact.
You would have had to advertise that action 24 hours in advance. Now, it was a stream though, for Carolyn. Council can declare an ordinance and not give you 24 hours notice on the draft of the document that can be prepared tonight. And council could do it first and finally get another action. That's a difficult thing to do, but council could do that by declaring an
So they have to, so they first have to declare an emergency. And that's just a statement, it's a motion.
You have to put it in the ordinance and state why it's an emergency that we didn't give 24 hours notice.
Okay, so we take the existing ordinance and we put an emergency clause in there. And they enact that, presumably. First and second reading or one reading?
First and second readings.
First and second reading. So that justifies the next step. The next step is they can make a motion to repeal that just amended ordinance with the first and second reading.
Yeah, it's just, you would just prepare an ordinance. Carol had to write it out, prepare an ordinance, tonight declare it as an emergency, because it wasn't posted, and council could repeal the other ordinance. You know, one action in an ordinance that was created tonight.
You can write this while we're talking about everything else? Or what's it?
Get right. She can do it. She can do it.
Sunshine law says that.
Okay, neither of us are lawyers. I'm a little confused, sorry. Walk us through what could be done.
Well, I think John probably stated it, I think John stated it accurately. I would be uncomfortable if there was nothing in writing. First of all, explaining why this action was being taken without anything being published in advance. So, and that would be the decision that it was an emergency, that we had to repeal it tonight.
Right.
And so then that would be read, and then they would repeal it, but there would be nothing in its place unless all those decisions are made to place those in tonight. Again, you have to explain why it's an emergency. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible.
I think our business is suffering and losing business and going out of business is an emergency. I don't think we can afford to lose or have our economy of Rolla suffer further for no reason at this point in time. So I think it is an emergency. I would say we move forward with repealing it, and again, I would suggest that the city come back to us very quickly in the next few days with the suggestions that John and I have made, and we'll consider it in a special session.
Well, if I may.
Yeah.
Another option is to declare, like, you have 24 hours from now to get something written, and you could have an emergency meeting, which might make more sense to make sure everything is written properly. And
Well, I don't know what needs to be written. We just need to repeal the ordinance as it stands.
I get the sense that you would like to put, not only put the brakes on, but a step back. So repeal what we have.
Right.
And then there'll be a window of dates, whether that's July 7th or that's next Monday, that we basically have nothing, and that would give us a chance to bring something to you for action.
Right, and I mean, the city would have nothing, but we still have the guidance from the governor saying, you know, social distance, wear masks. I mean,
So is that possible?
to repeal it without anything in writing tonight? Again, that would be an action without it being published 24 hours in advance. That's my
So they need to
concern.
declare an emergency action first, right?
Right.
So you make some statement with the right words.
Can we just take a copy of the old ordinance and write repealed on it?
Don't you ask, put it another way, this is a question, haven't we made motions in council before or something?
I think it's coming back to the posted, right? The public has not had 24 hours to see that action. I think that's the problem.
So is there a difference between the ordinance and a...
Sunshine.
It's about posting any action, and a repeal is an action. And again, this is just advice. You guys can do whatever you want. The advice is that you want to post it and follow the sunshine law. That's the advice.
Everybody set your clocks at 24 hours.
Okay. We're gonna have to circle back to all these points. I don't want to forget about Christine. Christine, any comments? Yes, go ahead.
So, try to figure out how to say this without insulting people, but I've been very frustrated the past couple of weeks, even before the governor did his executive order and said we're now in phase 2 and everything's open, because my observations have been that there are a lot of people in this area who have acted like it's over anyway. I feel very, very badly for especially the restaurant owners here in town. I've seen the posts on Facebook and other social media, but my personal feeling, and from talking to a few people, I'm not sure without students here in town and that there are people like me that just, whether or not the restaurant's open, I'm still doing curbside. I'm supporting local businesses and doing curbside. Because I don't think it's really safe, especially for someone like me who is immune compromised, who would like to visit her parents who are extremely immune compromised, to be able to go out and get exposed. I'm being very careful. I do wear a mask. I don't appreciate the people who are pushing their agenda on not wearing a mask on those of us who are, because the research is showing, and there is research out there, that it's helpful to contain the spread. Honestly, if we were to open restaurants for business, fine, I won't be going. I know a lot of friends won't be going either. But I was just in a store this afternoon, and the cashier was behind a plexiglass, which I think is a false sense of security. If you've watched any of the studies on how the aerosol spreads. So the plexiglass was in front of the lady at the register, but the register was at the front of the store, and there was no plexiglass to the side of her. She was not wearing a mask, and she turned and greeted everybody that walked in the door, spewing that towards people walking in the door. There are people that were in line that were literally right on my back, not keeping the social distance. And, if we were to repeal something, I think we need to very strongly word. Social distancing has not gone away. Like the governor said, the virus is still here. Social distancing still stands. Wear a mask if you're in public, and for heaven's sakes, wash your hands. And then wash them again. So that's kind of my take on things right now. People are doing what they want anyway, so I'm not sure why we have an ordinance at this point. I just wished people were a little bit more cautious.
Yeah, I share your views, Christine. I think in the absence of hard data and a lot of facts that we don't have, this really becomes that fine line between how does the governing body want to protect X amount of people, if those people want to be protected, which is sometimes questionable, right, versus individual rights. That's what makes this one quite the challenge. But I agree with you. I vote with my wallet, I vote with my feet. And if I'm going to a store and somebody's breathing down my neck, I'm walking out. Simple as that. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe we all have personal responsibility to make those choices. So.
Well, and just one more observation. Like I said, I've been trying to go out and especially for restaurant, shop local, and help those businesses out. Doing curbside, doing delivery, whatever it takes. I was driving down Bishop the other day, and the line outside of Applebee's broke my heart, because we don't see those lines outside of the local restaurants. And Applebee's is going to be fine at the end of all this. It's the local restaurants that aren't, they're the ones that are hurting, and that's what I want to encourage people to do. Walmart's going to be there. Shop at places that need our help at this point.
David?
Yes, I have a couple things. The first one is I just wanted to mention I'm not against considering what John and Matthew have mentioned about setting more of a trigger point that would allow us to decide, hey, now is the time to reinstate some things. I'm not against also maybe deciding that we want to change the date from July 7th. I am definitely not comfortable with like trying to make this all happen tonight and make an emergency order so that we can repeal. Like I'm willing to consider in this next week if we want to set something up in the coming days or even next Monday. I think trying to rush this through doesn't feel right to me, so I won't be able to vote for all that tonight. So I just wanted to mention that. The other place I wanted to go on this is kind of the front lines of what's going on, and it's the immediate thing that I made comments about when I was first pro taking precautions for our city, and that's our police and fire. And I was curious to see if Chief Smith, who's on the front lines of this, wanted to maybe make any comments just in terms of what he's seeing, or if he has any thoughts to guide us. I mean, for me, it was really one of my biggest things was making sure our first responders aren't affected. Clearly, we haven't had any hospital cases. Clearly, they're not having to decontaminate all day long and that kind of thing. But I was just curious if he has any comments that could help guide us based on him being out in the front lines every day.
I'll defer to both chiefs.
I didn't mean to not include Chief Fagan, but I know that you've been doing more of the inspections, so yeah, if Chief Fagan has something too, that'd be great.
So in regards to the fire stations, they're currently on lockdown in that we're isolated and we're considering them islands until we feel comfortable bringing them back together, working together as a group. Now in an emergency, for example, Colton's, we were able to achieve and put the fire out very easily, still maintaining that separation between the two stations. So we do have some internal rules that we have in place that we continue to monitor. We do wish to ease up on those. We think there's an opportunity for us to ease up on those this week. And we're working towards doing that, but we have not set those into place. As regards to how people are responding, there's a group that hates it and there's a group that loves it. And God bless us all. Right? We all have a strong opinion on those things. But the virus is going to affect Rolla, Missouri at some point. How we proceed from here will be very important to what risks we're willing to take. So from my standpoint, I see it's going to affect us at some point with everything that I see and know from other cities and other states that have seen the impact. So to go to nothing would be a very big step to me. It would seem to be a very big step to go for the next 3 weeks to absolutely no rules. Because I may be wrong. The guideline for 6-foot distancing is not is it an executive order? So if you go to nothing, it is nothing. So the governor's order there's no executive order by the governor at this point, or the Missouri Division of Health or Senior Services. So there's no executive order by Dr. Williams, which would imply in the city would be completely open, which that's your decision, will make it work.
I mean, just to clarify, you've been out there working with businesses, seeing what's going on. From your perspective, I know this is probably a hard question based on all this, taking sides or whatever, but I really am concerned about our first responders, and I really am concerned about our public. If our first responders and public are just absolutely fine with going forward with nothing, I'm more in that direction. But if we'd like to take a slower step approach, I want to respect that too.
Thank you for that opportunity as well. So we have worked very hard with Phelps Health Ambulance Service to reduce our call volume for emergency first responder medical calls. So our call volume has decreased to 60% decrease in first responder calls for medical emergencies, which is a good thing for the exposure of our people to all calls are important, but they all are not life and death emergencies. So we have categorized them with our emergency services, Phelps Health, and decreased the number of calls that we respond to. So to answer your question is we are not deconning every day. We do have a PPE problem still in Rolla, still through the state of Missouri. We have about 400 N95 masks in stock. I'm got 10 people a day.
Right.
If
Do the
I
math.
expose 10 people and use the mask 10 a day, we could use our supply very, very rapidly. There's cleaning mechanisms, but there's a lot of hoops to run through to do those things. So we have reduced our call greatly.
Right.
And it would not, at this point, jeopardize our operation at this point. Would it have some inherent risk? Absolutely.
Do you think it makes sense more to hold on a little longer, or that we should just fully open it up?
Let me ask a question.
Not supposed to say that. I mean, I'm trying to get public safety, and I don't want you to have to take sides, but it helps us as decision makers. That's it.
David, I believe you can run your station the way you want to run your station, right?
I know, but he's been dealing with the public. He's also been dealing with the public, and he's seeing that.
So your question is, let me talk about staff for a second.
Sorry, Chief.
I'm
I'm
going to bring it back. You're policymakers, and you make policy. John and I are responsible for implementing policy, but operating the city and managing staff is within our purview. At least we believe it that way. So even if you change these ordinances, doesn't necessarily mean that that's what we're going to do with these folks here. What we do with City Hall, and how we protect and how we choose to manage our first responders, unless you really stomp on our toes, we'll deal with that.
Certainly. And that's why I was saying I appreciate the perspective from the first responders, but then also of like your view from the public too. So.
I can tell you with dealing with the public every day since this happened, the public's not really following the guidelines right now. I mean, there are some businesses that are. You go into a restaurant, they have their tables spaced appropriately and everything, but in the same sense, you go into Walmart and you're shoulder to shoulder with, 500 other people shopping. Yes, they're counting people going in the store, and yes, they're counting out, but I think they're just pushing on a blank screen, because you can look on the parking lot and there's not an open parking spot in the parking lot. People are doing what people want to do. People that are careful are wearing the mask. As far as my officers go, they're still under orders. If they go to a call, they have to have masks on, they have to have gloves on. And we had one incident where they didn't have them on, and there was a chance they were all exposed. They all were spoken to about that, and I can assure you that won't happen again. But as far as the public goes, do we try to enforce it? Yes. I've walked into several businesses and I'm like, hey guys, put your mask on, kind of things. But the general public themselves, they're not really following the rules right now. I can tell you that right now, just by being out there.
I mean, this could be an argument for John's case in the sense that, I'm trying to be fair to both sides in the sense that people aren't following very well, hitting a trigger point where we say, hey, look, we got hospital cases now, whatever. Maybe people would take it more seriously at that point.
Right now,
what is going to help the public?
Because in Phelps County, we've only had 6 cases.
Right.
Well, you and I know the reason we've only had 6 cases is because we put these things in order. People don't see that. They don't understand that. They think it's safe. And I can tell you right now, you can pass whatever ordinance you want to pass. People aren't going to follow it. They're just going to do what they want to do. And that's a terrible thing for me to say, but I'm just telling you what I see and my people see every day while we're out there working.
I guess the things that they would follow would be things like the Chief Smith is inspecting, like places that of business that have to follow the rules. Those would they'd have to follow, but the public themselves would do what they want.
Like I said, our businesses are following the rules. It's the public's not.
Appreciate it.
Yes, that's very true.
Thank you both for all you've been doing and for your comments. Last thing I wanted to say on this is just, even for myself, I just want to be clear, like, I'm not wearing this mask to protect myself. I have chosen to do it because I understand that wearing a mask could be helpful to not spread the disease to others if I happen to be asymptomatic. And I think those of us that are taking this kind of thing seriously and doing those kinds of things, we're not doing it to punish the public or these ordinances to, hey, make people lose money at their businesses or any of that. Of course, and I think most people understand that. But we are elected to care for and take the precautions to help protect the public if we see something that could be dangerous. And so I think if everyone could at least also understand that folks here aren't trying to punish anyone in the public, they're not trying to punish businesses. Of course, we don't want to see that in our community. We all have friends, family who are business owners that are affected by this. And so just understand the position we're in, and I think the more public that would be willing to take more precautions, the more, like Chief said, if folks aren't, it makes it harder for us. Like, we feel like, well, we might need to do some things to make them see that this is really important. So I'm not sure what the right answer is either, and I appreciate the input from our chiefs here. And I guess the last thing I was going to pose was just something with the mayor, which is I know the mayor and John have done an awful lot of work of investigating all the things related to COVID. I think they've delved into this way deeper than we have. And so the last thing I was going to ask, and I figured he was going to weigh in, or they both might weigh in, but from your perspective of all the things that we're doing, how do you feel? Obviously, there's some different perspectives on council. How do you feel from having set these up and the kind of way that we're kind of slowly taking them down? How do you feel we're at in terms of this? What are your perspectives, having done so much work on this?
I won't speak for John, I'll speak for myself. As a mayor and as an individual, and I think there are two different answers to some degree. In the very beginning, I think you acted too quick. I think what it was originally our intent at City Hall was to bring you some ideas to start to work with, and then in the ensuing weeks, those would be refined. And those would be refined because you would get citizen input, because those actions are on, those discussions are on TV and newspapers and things like that. So that sort of surprised us in the beginning. And then as time went on, I came to the conclusion that we probably did the right thing by putting some of those restrictions in place. And I personally believe that many of them are common sense. But I'm also a little bit of a libertarian. I don't like people telling me what to do. So I'm conflicted because I do believe in people's responsibilities, people's rights. And I also agree with Chief Fagan. As I walk down the street today and I see very, very few people, whether these are in an ordinance, whether it is a guideline, I personally see very, very few people that are taking the precautions that I believe they should and that I take as an individual. So I think this thing is continuing to come full circle, and I think it's just symptomatic of the whole country, right? Well, this is a hot spot, this isn't a hot spot. Well, this is transmissible, this is not. I just think it's a very confusing thing, but I think we are at to the point where whether you actually put it on the shelf or loosen it further until an event occurs, that would be my personal opinion. But I'll defer to John because I want to speak.
Well, I guess we could look at it one of two ways. We were either lucky or we've done some things right. And I go back to the Chancellor in March. When the Chancellor first announced that he was canceling St. Pat's, I joined the chorus with lots of folks thinking, I can't believe we're not going to have St. Patrick's Day this year. And 2 days later, National Hockey League and NBA cancels their seasons. I thought, okay, this is something that was intelligent, well thought out from the university. I think that's the real indicator why we don't have cases here. We'd have brought in 3,000 people that weekend from all the state of Missouri, lots of urban people from St. Louis, Kansas City coming back from St. Pat's. So I think we've been good, more so than lucky, because of the leadership by the Chancellor of the University. I think council then took some actions, as the mayor said. Council's action over our initial recommendation, the timing of that, we declared an emergency. I agree with the mayor. I think in hindsight, that was an important step, and council did that definitively. First and final reading for a stay-at-home order. Next month, we loosened that up, and I thought we had excellent cooperation from our businesses. We still do, but what we really did was once we allowed the public to go back and to be active again, we put our responsibilities on enforcement on business owners. And that's been a really difficult thing to do, but despite the work of Chief and the fire department, we've had really great cooperation and some success from the population. I see lots of people walking around with masks and using safe spacing. So I think we've done a lot of things really well. And I don't think we need to be apologizing for what we've done. This is not something that's been impacting just Rolla, right? This is impacting the whole world. It's certainly impacting everything that we know in our state of Missouri. And so the idea of loosening the restrictions to me makes a lot of sense. I think there's some more loosening we could do. I think we could put more wording in there that is strong, suggestive language and still have requirements that I think personal caregivers, I think personal service providers should still be wearing masks. I don't think we're through that window yet. Do I think occupancy in restaurants and bars and stores can go up from 25%. I thought for sure the governor was going to go to 50% occupancy requirement. I think everybody thought that until the last week or so when we just stopped getting any feedback from the governor's office. So personally, I think we've made good, wise choices. I think we've been sort of methodical about it. I think we can continue to listen. I think if we repeal entirely, which is entirely your discretion, and I understand the pressure to do that, I think we're going to find more cases here, certainly as students return and travel season throughout the summer takes place. So it's a difficult situation. We posed some of these questions last week, and we just didn't get much dialogue, or we'd have been happy to prepare an ordinance that would repeal or an ordinance that would amend it, but we weren't getting any feedback. It had no way of determining consensus from council. So just future suggestions, we don't do those just for our entertainment. We're trying to do those to try and get some consensus out of you, so we're not sitting here at a meeting asking perhaps our attorney to draft up a legal document that we're going to declare an emergency and take action tonight. We can do those things. Right? The law allows mechanisms for doing it, but the standard for declaring an emergency in that case is really high of the sunshine law. And we couldn't have thought that last Thursday or Friday. So I think as a result of that, if you want to go and repeal, I think we schedule a special meeting, do it in 2 days, do it next Monday. We'll have time to do an ordinance that will give perhaps some strong wording on what we're going to encourage. But that's just my feedback.
Thank you all.
So you can take action tonight if you want to go down that path. Whether you do or don't, I'm going to come back and take another bite out of the apple. You have got to give us some indication tonight as to what you want to go forward, whether that's benchmarks. I think Eric is right on. You could use benchmarks for hospital admissions. You can use such things as number of cases in the area. Those are good. But our ordinance has a lot of other things in it as well. It's got those occupancy issues. It's got health plans. It's got this, that, and the other thing. You're going to have to give us some indication as to what you're thinking, and I would suggest you do that tonight, A, so we can go write something for you to look at. But this is a good venue because you've got people here, and they'll give you feedback tomorrow. John and I will get feedback tomorrow. You might as well. So, how do you, Jody?
So I kind of like Dave. I don't know that I would be comfortable in doing emergency repeal tonight. I also think that if we repeal, it's going to be extremely difficult to put any kind of restrictions back on, no matter what the metrics are, just the way people operate. Once you say you're open, it's going to be real tough for us to shut anything down again. It's my personal opinion. I still think we probably ought to consider those and have some sort of a trigger point that if we do start to see a rise in cases and hospitalizations, that we do consider some other restrictions, but I'm kind of doubtful that that will work real well, but it probably is the right thing to do. I personally would be open to considering increasing our occupancy for our businesses and to loosening some of the other restrictions. But I think that the reality is that the virus is here. It's not going away. We don't have a vaccine. We don't have herd immunity. And if we just repeal, what we're telling people is, have at it. We don't care, you know, what's going to happen is going to happen. I think if we loosen our restrictions one more time and see how that goes in terms of hospitalization and new cases, that gives the signal that everybody should continue to consider that the virus is here and you still need to be working on individual protection as well as protection of all of our citizens. So I'm not real comfy with the repeal tonight, but I would be open to considering particularly loosening, and if everybody else is for repeal, then perhaps. But
if you consider loosening, I would ask you to consider. We're not going to know a damn thing in a week or 10 days. We're just because some doctor says, well, it's the incubation period is 14 days, that doesn't really mean much as you cycle through. You've got some large community events this summer. And you have 7,000 students coming here in August. So if you loosen up, which I think is a great idea, then I think you should be of the mindset to loosen them up enough to at least that you're comfortable with it to get through some of those mile markers. Just a suggestion. John?
Well, to Jody's point, if you loosen it up and we have a big outbreak and we get it to be a hot spot, what is the difference? Because then we're going to want to tighten them up. So we're going to have to come back eventually one way or the other. So you come back from a repeal or you come back from loosening up. And I think we're, like Matthew said, our businesses are choking. So I'm not comfortable leaving the restrictions the way they are personally. But I've made that clear.
If I can respond to that, I know it isn't necessarily a perfect formula, but from the standpoint of ordinance drafting, any new ordinance or any new orders that are made can account for the feasibility or possibility of having to retract or move back to whether you call them phases or anything else. So that way it's all established. I'm just giving you sort of like what I would recommend as far as drafting would say, this is the plan, but if these things happen, then the mayor or the council has the ability to reel things back. At least that's all out there in writing to begin with versus, so that's just what I'm throwing out in response to your question.
It wasn't the legal thing I was thinking about. It was the public's response.
Right.
You know, to come back is going to be hard no matter what, from whatever position we're coming back from.
Rachel?
Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm kind of with Dave and Jody insofar as I don't necessarily feel comfortable acting tonight. I would agree with everyone that I think that we do need to think about loosening what the restrictions look like. I've read some interesting articles that really point out, right, that in this context what we're thinking about is what are the risks that the public is willing to assume, right? And what are the risks that we as council are willing to assume, right? It sounds like, I'll say this, I went to Tater Patch to pick up some takeout on Friday, place was full. So it does seem like there's a real appetite, and we're like, there's a real interest in sort of expanding and opening up the restaurants a little bit more. And I'm comfortable with that, if that's what the risk they're willing to take. I am concerned, like you, and like I think as what motivated our passing of the ordinance at the beginning of the month is thinking about the large events like Summerfest, like the carnival, like the kids coming back, right? That there's these big public events that bring a lot of people in, and I think, for instance, the health and safety plans that we've asked people to draw up, I think that's actually a real benefit, right? Because that's a big space where transmission is likely to happen, or it could happen, and if transmission happens at that event, right, you've got suddenly 500 people who have been potentially exposed. And contact tracing, I understand, in those events is a real nightmare, right? And looking at sort of a lot of what epidemiologists or sort of disease experts are saying, right? Like, that's the thing that they're like, I'm not sure about that. So I'm perfectly happy coming back later this week, next Monday, looking at an ordinance that's going to pull back on a lot of these restrictions. I'd still probably like to see some stuff, you know, around the big events, right, that we put in. I think that was some sensible policy making.
Okay, so let's keep things on the table and let's take things off the table. So it seems to me the first one is whether or not you want to take action tonight, or emergency action. So if that's what council wants to do, and I sense that one or more will make a motion to do that, what exactly has to be done tonight for that to occur?
Well, I presume I could either draft something that talks about why it's an emergency and then that can be read and voted on. And then as far as what the emergency is and what the action, the proposed action
And
is. But it would be very rough.
So it's going to be a couple sentences, I presume.
Well, if anybody knows me, it's probably not just a few sentences.
Don't worry. You're on
Yeah,
record.
it would have to be very short. Yeah.
Okay, so you pick some words that essentially says, council has declared an emergency and as such would like to repeal that ordinance tonight. Is that what you're saying?
In essence, I guess,
So
yes.
those words would be a motion, suspend the rules, and have a second vote for the emergency action.
As well, yes.
And then the second step would be a motion to repeal, a waiving of the rules, a second, and then it would be repealed.
Correct.
And then that takes us back to zero. There's nothing in place.
Nothing in place.
Okay, so before we go further, let's get that one off the table. So do you want to pick some words?
Well, I guess my suggestion before I try to articulate that would be, is the consensus, is that what they want to vote on?
Mm-hmm.
No.
I don't think so.
If two people are saying that's all they want to do, then you're not going to get that
So we're allowed to
action.
do a motion by show of hands. Okay, we'll wait for John.
I mean, that's all. I mean, I'm just saying before we.
While we're here and waiting for John, I just wanted to pose something to Councilman Crowell. I know Councilman Crowell is often on the side of hesitancy to do a first and second reading and also declare emergency orders. I am very sympathetic with our businesses, and I'm definitely think the last 2.5 months or more, they have been greatly affected. My question would be to Councilman Crowell, taking an emergency action to say we're having an emergency in Rolla because we can't wait 3 or 4 days to have another meeting or a week to have another meeting, seems like a bad precedent for the future. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think we set a bad precedent when we took and made an emergency to pass these ordinances in the first place, which is why I voted no, and I was the only one that voted no. So to answer your question, I don't think it sets a bad precedent. I think we already set that precedent back when we passed these. I think our businesses are suffering, and they're here today to tell us that.
Sure.
And I think economic hardship on our local businesses is an emergency that was not created by us. It was created by COVID-19. But we can take a step today, which we've been in under emergency powers for the last several months. So I don't think it's a drastic step to say we're still under that emergency, to move forward and declare that emergency over and repeal the current ordinance as it stands, come back in a few days,
Right.
and have these guidelines that we're talking about. I don't think that's too drastic of a thing to do when we pass this ordinance under emergency.
Sure.
Can I just throw one thing out there, Mr. Crowell?
Sure.
Now, I don't have all the research in front of me today, but the emergency orders were based on public health.
That's right.
So based on what you're saying, is the decision to make an emergency based on financial or anything
Right.
else? I mean, that's a distinction, I think, on the emergency powers, and I'm just bringing that up from the legal perspective.
I understand there's a distinction, but I think that the economic hardship of our community is an emergency. I think they go hand in hand. When people lose their business.
I'm not arguing with you, Matt.
Okay.
You know that. I'm not arguing with you. What I'm saying is the powers are based on those public health issues and pandemic and emergency, not a financial, which was what I heard you saying. So I'm just trying to clarify the distinction for the purposes of what gives you that emergency power, or the mayor the emergency powers.
Financial cannot be one of them, don't you think?
Well, I don't have it in front of me, but all the statutes are based on if there is a public health crisis or something like that, not a... I mean, I see it's tied to the public health crisis, but is it actually the public health
No.
that is creating this emergency if you're proposing that? I'm asking that as a question just for the, not to be rhetorical, but
Financial emergency.
are you proposing this because it's a public health emergency or because you think it's a financial, economic emergency?
I think it's a financial, economic emergency.
Are we allowed to declare emergency for that? Sorry.
I don't think that was part of the, again, not having all of the research in front of me today, but that wasn't what that wasn't what that information
Seems
was
like
about.
another reason to maybe wait a few days or a week. I don't know. If we're not clear on all this.
I'm just talking about the executive-like orders that we were talking about a couple of months ago.
So John, we want to move one thing, put it on the table, take it off the table. So there's a pathway that you could act tonight. So question before we start writing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So if we are to declare a financial emergency, I'm wondering what will be done for everyone who's going through evictions, who need rent and mortgage assistance, that kind of thing. If we are going to declare a financial emergency, we have homeless people in Rolla. What will be done on behalf of them? This will trickle down to many people, I believe, who are living in poverty long before the pandemic started. But this has affected our most marginalized people in our community. So I am sympathetic to business owners. I agree with Ann. I agree with Dave. I am also doing what Christine is. I do carry out a lot. We need to support our small businesses. I absolutely agree. But if we are going to declare a financial emergency, what will be done for all the students who had to leave because they couldn't afford rent anymore? What's going to happen to the people who have been evicted? What's going to happen for our homeless people in our community? Because that's been a problem before the pandemic, and it has been worse.
That problem was created by the pandemic and by the ordinances and the rules that we put into place that shut down businesses. If we let the businesses open back up, sure, we're still going to have people that are suffering from poverty, people that are homeless, but we're going to have more homeless people and more people in poverty if we don't get businesses back up and running.
Okay. So, is there a motion tonight to consider the drafting and action repealing an ordinance?
So moved.
Okay, so motion, Carolyn second. John, Carolyn. Roll call vote.
Schneider,
No.
Florence,
Yes.
Reuter,
No.
Bowen,
Yes.
Higgins,
No.
Murphy,
No.
Schott,
No.
Crow,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Allen,
No.
Eberly,
No.
Lyons,
No.
4 ayes and 8 nays.
Okay, so at least for tonight, that's off the table. So, let's regroup. Question is, does council want to consider coming back, let's hypothetically say, next Monday, for a meeting to review and to consider a change to the existing ordinance? John? Yeah. Okay. So there's a motion for that.
Make a motion.
Motion made. Or was that a question you were going to ask?
Well, I was gonna make a motion that we should reconvene to consider amending our ordinance no later than next Monday.
Okay.
Yes.
That's well stated. There's a second on that. Roll call vote.
Who's the second?
Marie.
Thank you. Schott,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Boland,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes. Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Florence,
Yes.
12 ayes.
Okay, so let's operate on the assumption of next Monday. We have a lot of work to do. I'm not leaving this podium until you give me some ideas, hopefully a consensus as to what you want to change. Marie.
So if we're talking about loosening up restrictions to help businesses, one of the main things that I've seen is distressing is the occupancy limit. So if we could loosen up the occupancy limit so that the restaurants can have more people in, but maybe still keep some things like the masks and the employee health checks, because those are going to be the things that are going to be even more necessary the more crowded the dining rooms get.
Okay. Anyone else?
I also think that
we should keep the materials in the ordinance about sort of the larger events, health and safety plans, if they plan to use city property or city resources.
Okay. David?
I don't know if it's part of this ordinance or not, but I agree with John that we should have some sort of trigger points for if we need to reinstitute. Like, hey, all of a sudden we got hospital cases and we got new number of cases. I don't know what that number is either. I don't know if that's something we talk about this week through communications, or you guys look at a little more of what other cities have done. I mean, I'm fine with not deciding that now, but I do agree we need some trigger points for the future.
I think with that particular metric, so once a week we don't meet with the county health director, the hospital, and the doctor that's in charge of health services at MS&T has joined our group. I'd feel more comfortable getting feedback from them, because again, that's their area of expertise, and they're going to be on the front lines when those numbers hit. What else would you like to see change? Terry?
I had a request, I guess, a sideways kind of request. There are some personal services that do not require the people to be right next to each other. And if we could loosen the mask restrictions for that sort of thing. If I tell you, you probably know who my source was. Okay, so veterinarian. So a veterinarian working on someone's animal may not necessarily have to be within 6 feet of the person.
Okay, so you're talking about rooming, I presume?
Yeah.
Not okay.
Yeah. So there may be some other sorts of examples.
So maybe we define personal services, I think, has been really tattoos, hairdressers, and barbers. And that's generally the bulk of this job.
So maybe just a sort of a generalized statement that for any business where you can stay further than 6 feet away from the customer, you don't need.
Okay, so let me go on that. Because, personal opinion, some of the most inconsistent compliance has been in this sector. So tell me how important what that sector is to you.
I'd like to see the 3-person in the waiting area increased or eliminated. And I think I said this another time in an email. You know, I went in a business that has a huge lobby, huge facility, but they can only have 3 people in there and slowed their whole operation down.
So instead of having a static number, relying on the occupancy.
Yeah, let's keep our 6 foot distancing.
Just understand, John, some of these barber shops are pretty small.
Oh, I understand. I'm not thinking of barber shop, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about masks? You know, because it's coming to my attention that there's hairdressers and barbers that are not wearing masks. Do you want that in or do you want that out?
So Mayor, in Springfield, the 2 ladies who worked in a hairdresser, they both wear masks. Their patrons all wore masks, and nobody contracted, even though they were infected. So that sort of speaks to it.
Tell us if you want it in or out. And then here's the other caveat. Then you should expect us to enforce it. If you put it in there, you should expect enforcement. So, do you want the mask adjusted for space, however we do that? Do you want at least a provider to have a mask?
In other words, I think whoever's doing the service should have a mask, but it should not necessarily depending on what's.
That's what we're saying. The person providing the hair dye or the hair cutting or the tattoo. There's some nods here.
Yep.
Christine? I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I didn't want to interrupt, but I would be okay with wording that the provider wears a mask, but I would also want to have language in there that it's encouraged that the customer also wear a mask. Put it on their shoulders to do the right thing.
Okay, what else do you want in? taken out or modified? As a concept.
I assume we're talking
Not asking
about-
you to vote tonight, but just to give us an ability to write something to come back to you with. Lister?
You had mentioned before that there was a couple of different areas that you wanted us to address. Do you know which ones? Because I don't have it in front of me right now, but have we addressed all the ones that you wanted to? Or
If you ask me
particular were some things that you want us to?
If you ask me personally, I would say that I think the personal services should be enforced because of the close proximity. I think addressing the restaurants and loosening those spaces up would be one. We didn't mention bars and sitting at bars and bar stools, not the bar being the building, but the bar being the area within the restaurant. I think that's when you're gonna have to kick around.
Well, if a restaurant, now it's open to, you can have 10 people at a table, or a couple tables. One of the bars, that's all you can seat anyway. So if you have 10 people at that bar or 9, it's the same as at a table.
I guess if the bar owner is comfortable, I think this came up before, where the bar owner wanted bar stools out to protect their staff. That's up to the bar owner, in my opinion.
So it's up to the bar person that wants to sit there and drink a beer. So I mean, you're right, it's a personal choice.
I think you should put the stools back in bars personally.
What else? John, we have enough to at least start to bring them something? Yeah, sure. We need a formal action to declare a meeting for next Monday? Yeah. Okay, so that has to be posted. So do they have to take that vote tonight, or we just post it?
No, it's good to, because you're giving the public plenty of notice that if you're, don't have to post it by next Friday.
Okay, so is there a motion by council for us to schedule a meeting no later than next Monday, for us to bring you back a modified ordinance for review?
Second.
Motion made and second. Roll call vote.
Was it Bolin and Allen?
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes.
Kraft.
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Florence,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Eberly. Yes. Torres.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, I'll move further down the schedule. Citizen communication, we have 2 citizens that would like to speak, that are on the agenda, and there's probably a few others that would like to speak as well. I would ask all of them to consider 3 to 5 minutes. Our policy is to introduce yourself and state your name and address for the official record. So I will call on Joshua Roman first. Would you like to come up?
My name is Joshua Broman. My address, which I'll tell you the story in a minute, is 115 Jean Drive in Ward 1. So, this whole COVID-19 has really affected a lot of us. For me, I ended up signing up for, run for city council last December, and all this happened in about March? So here I am in the middle of campaigning, running, not knowing kind of what's going to happen. Long story short, my wife and I were going to end up, we decided to make it after I didn't get voted in. Congratulations, Ann. We made the decision that we're just going to go ahead and move back into a smaller house that she owns. We are hitting financial problems. Personally, my wife works for a food distributor. And of course, we've been sitting here for the last hour talking about all the restaurants that are shut down. In the state of Missouri, as of 6/12, on the health.mo.gov, I see that there are 15,585 confirmed cases and 872 deaths in the state due to COVID-19. In Phelps County, we've only had 6 positive cases, as the mayor explained. Fortunately, nobody's been hospitalized, so on and so forth. We literally have 0.03849% of the cases in the state of Missouri. Not even 0.5% is where we're sitting at. And 0% of the deaths. Now, for the, tell me if I'm wrong, but the infectious rate for Phelps County versus the number of citizens in the state of Missouri is actually 0.00009%. That's how many people in Phelps County have been infected with COVID-19 out of the entire state of Missouri. We literally shut down our town, 4 zeros and a 9. I've got friends that are sitting here with me tonight that run restaurants. They can't have people in there because of the restrictions that you put on. They can have 1 table. What's that going to do for their business? Absolutely nothing. It costs money to run electric, pay your employees, so on and so forth. They're not able to operate at full capacity. And with that happening, then my wife and my paychecks are being affected because that's who she distributes food to them. So now it's not just them. Now we're talking about my distributorship that I work for and then me who worked for that distributorship. A lot of people are losing money because you guys decided to shut down the city on 4 zeros and a 9. Now, at the same time though, running for city council, I did a lot of reading. I do not envy the seat that that you ladies and gentlemen are sitting in right now. You're responsible. The mayor and the council of each city governed by this chapter shall have the care, management, and control of the city and its finances, and shall have the power to enact, ordain any and all ordinance not repugnant to the Constitution and laws of the state. As such, they shall deem expedient for the good government of the city, the preservation of peace and good order. And here's the one where we're at tonight, the benefit of trade and commerce, as well as the health of the inhabitants thereof. We've tackled that one. We've been there for 90 days, 3 months. But now you guys have to switch gears and go back to the benefits of the trade and commerce for the local economy. We cannot keep locked down with restrictions. I know people who are permanently out of jobs right now until the doors are reopened. I know people who are collecting unemployment checks may not collect. Regardless, businesses we need to get back to doing what we're doing. Not only that, but Missouri is looking to cut $700 million from the budget because of the shortfalls due to the coronavirus. So that's just the state of Missouri. What are we losing? What is the city losing? What are our firefighters losing? That you're talking so much, like, hey, we need to take care of them. You guys just passed the use tax last November. Were you guys one of the cities that called up to the state to make sure that we were getting our use tax? Hey, we're losing taxes. Businesses are closed. We need to make sure we're getting our use tax. You guys say that you promote, local businesses and restaurants and our responders, but if you keep us locked down, it's only going to get worse. You're going to spiral out of control. The bottom line is you guys got to reopen the city, so we can have our economy booming at full capacity again, and it's not okay, like it's been mentioned tonight, that you can go by, if I'm not mistaken, the Chiefs, that you can go to a Walmart and see over thousands of people sitting there, but I can't go to my taco shop and get a taco. It's not fair. I can't go to church. Couldn't go to church for 2 months. Here's the deal. On top of everything that's going on, I understand that we're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, but this isn't living life. God gives us hope. Isaiah 26:20 tells us, "Come, my people, enter your chambers and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until the fury has passed. It doesn't say stay hidden for months or years. It says a little while. That's what it's telling us. And the fury has passed. We're 90 days in at 4 zeros and a 9%. After 90 days, that's a pretty good indicator that it's passed. Galatians 5:13 says, for you were called to freedom. I'm getting there. Okay? For you were called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. We, as Americans, are to be a free people. This is what our country was founded on. It is stated in our Declaration of Independence that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, not, how do I say this, requests. These are rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And right now, a lot of businesses are not able to pursue the happiness of running the store and serving the people. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So you guys derive your powers from the people that you're governing. All these people here. Jody, I have never met you before, but some of the comments that you were making tonight, just wanted to point out. I want to ask you what country that we live in. We live in the United States of America. And I've never signed a contract with any of you to dictate what goes on in my life. If I go out there and I get hepatitis B, are you going to be responsible for me not giving it to somebody else? I mean, hepatitis A, transferable disease, are you responsible for that? I mean, it's pretty contagious. I remember I had to take some medication just to go down to Haiti for it. You know, we're talking about making people wear masks, shop owners, customers, seriously? Kind of like the Star of David? I mean, that's the response. You're like, oh, we're going to live in a Nazi state? David?
No, I do not think it's a Nazi state. No.
Hold on.
I do not agree with that. Okay. No.
This is disgusting.
No, I do not.
5 minutes. I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it.
I understand that. So anyways, I do want to, at the very end, we're all in this together. Okay, right?
Right.
And I appreciate you guys for what you do. And I wish you guys the best of luck with your decision. I pray that you really think about your local businesses. Thank you.
Next, Sarah Snodgrass.
Hi, my name is Sarah Snodgrass. I reside at 1113 Murray Lane here in Rolla, Missouri. Waynesville, Lebanon, Cuba, Sullivan, Springfield. All cities in close proximity that have no stay-at-home orders. All cities in close proximity to Rolla that will be open as of tomorrow with no restrictions. Some of these locations have even started holding large events as early as 2 weeks ago. Lebanon has held at least 3 races to my knowledge and will be holding a Route 66 Fest June 20th. Richland is scheduled to hold a carnival June 24th through the 27th. However, here in Rolla, we continue to be held hostage by the strict guidelines set by the Rolla City Council. Phelps County has had a total of 6 cases. Pulaski County, a total of 107, with at least 70 of them coming from Waynesville, Fort Wood. And yet, as I said, no added restrictions in any of these cities. In March, when we started this journey with COVID, no one knew quite what to expect. Residents were willing to stop their lives, to pause their businesses, to reorganize public education, and stay home in order to flatten the curve. However, here we are mid-June, and the curve has been flattened, and yet Rolla City Council still refuses to open our city fully. Maybe the city has forgotten the key fact that the goal was to slow the spread, not stop the spread. This was to give our hospitals time to prepare, and now they are. The city has a date of July 7th for the ordinance to expire, and maybe now Monday of next week. But last I checked, neither of those are magical days, and COVID won't just go away on those days either. So why now? Why can we open now? Why? I'm confused. The ramifications of the shutdown will be the closing of many of our great small businesses here in Rolla, as many are struggling with these restrictions. Has Rolla City Council even taken the time to go and speak to our local businesses? After asking a few of my small business friends, my consensus is no. In addition to crippling our small businesses, the City Council encouraged and enforced the postponement or cancellation of many outdoor activities, when in fact being outdoors is one of the healthiest places to be. At the meeting on June 1st, the mayor fixated on the Lake of the Ozarks Memorial Day celebration, where hundreds, if not thousands, of people celebrated, and yet only 2 people have tested positive. One example of the Rolla City Council's impossible strict guidelines forced the postponement and possible cancellation of the 85th annual Rolla Lions Club Carnival. I've written to the City Council on how unprofessionally I felt they handled that situation, setting the guidelines so late in the game as to give the Lions Club, who had already had a strict plan in place, I might add, a total of 8 business days in which to get an even stricter health plan in place and have it approved by the Rolla Lions Club. Rolla Lions Club Carnival Committee, and then hope it was approved by Rolla City Council. Rolla Lions Club would have needed to purchase all supplies for Carnival the first of the month, meaning if the council did not approve the plan, thousands of dollars would have gone to waste, thus taking away from all of that Rolla Lions Club does for our community. So although the council wants to put out a statement stating that they did not cancel the carnival, it is clear that Rolla Lions Club had their hand forced to postpone. It's upsetting that the city was not willing to work together to make it happen for the residents of Rolla, as it seems they were especially willing to when it comes to other activities just after the July 7th date. I wish those that have planned that specific activity the best and hope that many people turn out to enjoy their festivities this year. As a Rolla resident, I want my rights back without infringement so that we can go about our lives. The mayor stated at the June 1st meeting that every person who wants to open, another says to stay prudent. I think the evidence that I'm holding hundreds of comments saying that they want their city open, as well as a petition with over 1,200 signatures stating that they wanted the Rolla Lions Club to open, with comments stating, "We want the city open," speaks for itself. Did the Rolla City Council even care to get an opinion from its residents? I was not asked. I certainly saw no poll going around. And as I asked many other people, they also had no opinion to give. Rolla City Council wants me to pay the taxes, wants me to make up the difference when the city is in the red because they didn't collect enough taxes due to more people shopping online. Yet when residents come to the council to voice their opinions on matters at hand, such as reopening the city, they are told they are being unduly hard on council. It was made clear at the June 1st meeting that the council wants to rule with their opinions and that they don't want opposition. I respectfully disagreed with those opinions, with the exception of a few that I've heard here this evening as I sit and listen, as I've clearly sat and listened to many residents. I think those of you who are sitting here this evening who are for the opening of the city. I think that COVID has set forth a slippery slope, allowing our local government and our government to infringe on my rights and liberties and those of the people around me. In recent months, the council has sought to almost parent the city of Rolla and its residents. I'll take this moment to remind them that that's not their job. When did I lose the ability to choose? It should be one's own choice to go out to eat, to wear a mask, to go shopping at a local boutique. How long? How long will this go on for? A week? A month? Another 5 years? It's It's my understanding COVID's not going away. We must learn to live with it. And I, for one, am not willing to continue on with this lockdown while the experts figure out what's really going on with COVID. I would ask that you repeal the ordinance so that myself and residents and small businesses of Rolla can start to do it can start to dig out of the situation and hole that we've been put in by this forever long ordinance and COVID situation. I appreciate you, those who are sitting here tonight, who clearly have the best interests of Rolla residents and Rolla businesses at heart. And for those of you who don't, I would ask that you reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to City Council?
My name is Ron Bell. I'm at 14 South Murray Lane in Woodbury with these two dudes right here. I own American Taco Company here. There's a few of you guys that have been through there, and you guys know that we're pretty small. With the current regulations, it's not allowed us to open our dining room due to the fact of 6 foot, away from everybody in all directions. There's one table we could put right up in the middle, and that's still hoping, that it stays its distance. People have made, the argument about the wearing masks and stuff. If you guys pay attention when you go to these places and people wearing masks, I've actually seen some of you guys doing it in here tonight. The mask is super uncomfortable. You're breathing on yourself. It gets, if you wear, I'm supposed to be wearing glasses right now. I left them at work when I came over here, but even wearing the mask, I can't see, And so people are constantly moving the mask. You're touching your face. I've seen people inside here move the mask out, wipe their mouth. Now you're touching what you're touching. People bagging your groceries, they're trying to talk to you and they're touching the thing and they're doing. Like, I get that, maybe a mask does something. We don't know, wearing gloves. Some places wear gloves and they're going everywhere and nobody changes the glove. They take that glove and they're touching every single thing they come across. I've been in restaurants over 20 years, taking 1 million food safety courses, and I publicly post our health inspection on Facebook so everybody can see how we do. We keep it clean. We keep people safe. We follow the rules 100% at the taco shop. We wear our masks. I'm not trying to break rules. I'm trying to make a living. For the last 5 years, we have growth every single month since I bought the taco shop after I was there for a year. Changed a bunch of stuff every single month. Positive sales, positive sales. Coronavirus comes in. Looks like, yeah, it sucks, right? Shut the dining room down. So March, everybody says about, the St. Pat's getting shut down, and there was all those people that could have been here. All those people were still here. Like, everybody was still here. There was still, went to these bars, the bars were packed full, kids partying out on the street, destroying, trash everywhere. Like, everybody was still here. Nothing happened. So March was down in sales, kind of. It was right there towards the end. April down, May down, June we're already down, and now, to hear that the rest of the state's opening up and we're still right here. Like 6 by 6, man. I sat in this chair over here and the girl caddy corner wasn't even 6, and that's what y'all put. Y'all put these chairs inside here. I didn't do it. I didn't move my chair. Yeah, they scooted next to me because, that's our clique right there. But, I mean, it's just, like, I understand it's a hard decision. You guys are trying to keep you guys are trying to keep the well-being of everybody in control. But, man, it comes down to the due diligence of every single person. This lady on the monitor right here, she was saying she went there and people aren't wearing the masks and stuff. I mean, you guys could put 1 million laws inside this thing, and people they're not going to do what they don't want to do, You have to wear a mask to go in Menards. I'm trying to do some construction in the spot next to us to expand my dining room, so maybe I could have 12 people, 16 people maybe sit in there. Like, I'm spending all this money. I won't go to Menards because you have to wear a mask to walk inside there. Have you guys ever been in your kitchen, sweating and all that, trying to cook food, and you're breathing into this thing? Have you guys ever done that? Do that at your house. you guys think that's more sanitary than being back there? Like, I don't know what the answer is. Nobody knows what the answer is, which is why we're all here discussing this. But man, like this whole regulating the dining rooms down to 25%, you know, or 6 by 6 by 6, like, man, people are that scared. Stay at home, cook some food, do carry out. Oh, she says she's doing carry out. Someone else said in here, you know, about shopping local and doing all this, but man, it's past this point. You know, I'm part of the Lions Club, and I mean, everybody knows Lions Club can't do the carnival, and I mean that. Here a week later, we're fixing to do this Summerfest. I mean, like she said earlier, like this thing ain't going away, you know. So I don't know, man. All I gotta say is that we're struggling. Like, we're struggling bad. Like, we were doing good. We're struggling bad. I haven't paid myself since this whole thing going, so I could keep my employees paid off unemployment, keep the taco shop bills paid. You know, like it's a constant fight. You know, and I heard you guys were talking about doing some things. Y'all need, like, that 6-foot rule makes 0 sense. If we're wearing masks back there and we're wearing gloves back there, and you guys think masks is going to save somebody at TJ Maxx or Marshalls and stuff when you're doing that, like, how come us wearing masks making your food isn't cool, or taking your order at a table? You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't really know. I had nothing prepared. Like, I just showed up hoping, you know, that I could just kind of throw something out there, but, you know, I don't know. You know, this is the first time I ever heard you guys, first time I've ever been to something like this, you know? And I know nothing, like, you said some good stuff. There's a couple of you guys said some good stuff. You said some things at first, I was kind of like, dude, this guy, but you kind of had some good points, you know, like it's, you know.
Even I had a couple.
Yeah, you know, I just, I mean, I hope you guys take into consideration, you know, everything, and
We got a chunk. We ought to handle this stuff.
man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? 60 seconds is your last. You've been here a lot of times.
Hi, my name is Johnny Jones. I live 206 Brooker Drive, Rolla, Missouri. I've been in this town since '06. I lived back here back in the '80s. When I got married, I decided that we're going to move here because to me this is a good town to raise a family. And I've been proud to be living here. But the shutdown thing is getting out of hand. All right. Me, Sarah's husband, and I'm sure a few other people here, we didn't serve this United States of America to be locked down and be told what to do. We served in the military because we want to have our freedom. And right now, we don't have our freedom. All right? So the way I see it is, by us having this lockdown, you're slapping me and anybody else who's serving in the military in the face. All right? It's time to let us live our lives, let us make our choices. If people want to wear their masks, want to wear their gloves, let them wear it. People who don't want to, then that's their choice, just like the people with their choices of wearing masks. But right now, you people are making our choices. And I live in the United States. In the United States, we have freedom. And right now, we don't have our freedom. So I hope you take consideration that, as far as I'm concerned, you're slapping every past, present, and future military people in the face. So that you're not letting them, because that's what we fought for. Thank you.
My name is Nick Varick, 1297 Highway Open. I would hope or propose that John would create an amendment to the ordinance that would delete all sections that cause or inhibit business owners' ability to sell their product or service to their customers. There's lots of good things in the ordinance that are in there that don't do that. And then send out to you guys, and then if you want to add stuff to it that does inhibit, then tell John and add it in there. But let's create a starting point where there's no inhibition to sales.
everyone. This is exactly what we wanted. Comments for the good of the order, council? Okay. If not, moving on to closed session, we have one item under contract negotiation. So we'll take a break here and give everyone some time. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we need a motion to go? Yeah.
Is there a motion to go to closed session?
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote.
Murphy?
Yes.
Lyons?
Yes.
Lyons?
Yes.
Thank you. Allen?
Yes.
Bolin?
Yes.
Schneider? Yes. Reuter?
Yes.
Bush? Left. Higgins?
Yes.
Eberly?
Yes.
Florence?
Yes.
Schott?
Yes.
Crow?
Yes.
11 A's.
Okay. Put me on the hot seat.